Welcome everyone, my name's Michael Casswell and welcome to the Ultimate Guitar Effects. This is a DVD helping you put together a small guitar rig using effects pedals. We're going to start small and gradually get quite big. I'm going to show you my different pedal boards I use for live and for session work. I'm going to show you what order to put pedals in, where to spend your money best, and what sounds good and what sounds ungood, if there's such a thing, uncool. First thing to remember is guitar effects don't replace your playing, they enhance your playing. It's all about sound enhancement. So they will make a good guitar player sound better, but they'll make a bad guitar player sound awful. That's a fact of life. We're going to start small. I'm going to show you some of my collection of pedals and where to spend your money best. The first thing to remember is if you are going to invest money in effects pedals, make sure that you have a half-decent guitar and a half-decent amplifier, because if they're not cutting it, then why spend another £100 on an effects pedal that's just going to affect a bad guitar and a bad amp? So always spend your money wisely, and I hope this is going to help you make the right choice. So where would we start? Well, we start with a completely clean amp, and this is my clean sound. There's nothing on it at all. I've just got the guitar straight in to a clean amplifier. A good lead is essential. You need to have good guitar cables. There's no point in spending money on a pedal if your guitar cables are rubbish. Spend some money on a good cable. So what would be the first guitar pedal we buy? Well, my first guitar pedal was a distortion pedal, because back when I was playing, I had a Vox AC30 which was extremely loud, and the only way I could get a reasonable volume was some distortion and gain was with a distortion pedal, and I actually have it in my array of distortion pedals at my feet. So let's check it out. Here we have a very pretty selection of distortion and overdrive pedals. There's plenty on the market to choose from. These happen to be just what I have in my box, and I've used over the years on and off. So here we have the Boss Super Overdrive. Pretty cool pedal. It's an overdrive pedal that can kick a lot of gain into an amp that's on the edge. So if you've got an amp with not too much gain, get one of these, put it in front, and it'll bring your amp to life. A standard Tube Screamer, very cool pedal, does a very similar thing to the Super Overdrive. This is the standard one. It does exactly the same thing with an amp. It will push it to the limit. This is a vintage Tube Screamer. It's quite sought after. Doesn't sound too different. I can't tell the difference between this and a new one. There's a lot of talk about old pedals. It's good to have, but you know, the new stuff is just as good. This is the newest version of the Tube Screamer. It's got a few more options on it. It's got extra bass, extra gain. I use this quite a lot. The Boss DS1, instant distortion, but with a lot of compression. When you wind up the distortion on this, you lose the attack of the note, I've found. I have used this a lot, but nowadays it stays in the box just because I like to keep the attack of my note when I'm playing. When I'm picking, you tend to lose it with this. It turns into a bit of a mush. Or that could just be my playing, I don't know. An MXR Distortion Plus. This is a very, very early version of it, a vintage one. This was the first pedal I ever bought, and it was said to be on the same stage as Jimi Hendrix at the 1970 Isle of Wight Festival. Yeah, I used this a lot when I first started playing with a Vox AC30. It was the only way I could get some gain and overdrive and feedback. I used this. It's a pretty cool pedal. I occasionally still use it. Very vibey. The Marshall Governor pedal, it grinds and pumps like a Marshall is supposed to. Cool pedal. But here's the daddy, the Mesa Boogie V-Twin. Sounds great in most situations. The only drawback is it's damned expensive. Arms and legs. You chop your arm and leg off and then sell it. That's how much it costs. So this is out of this selection. What am I going to choose to introduce you to our first kind of building our first guitar pedal board? Well, I'm going to choose this pedal because I think it's pretty versatile out of all these. It's not a distortion pedal. We're going to go for the overdrive. It's called the Tube Screamer. So this will be what we start with. We've got our first pedal linked up here. It's the tube screamer. This is without it. This is just the amp by itself, perfectly clean. It's as quiet as I can get this amp. It's probably on half of one. So, what I like about this pedal is you can get that instant kind of Stevie Ray thing. It's great for that kind of bluesy. It's not a distortion pedal, but it's got a lot of tone to it. It's more of an overdrive pedal. You can go out and buy this pedal anywhere. It'll work great. It's great for an amp that's kind of on the edge. Even though I'm running this amp clean, I'm going to show you a way to get more gain out of this with our next pedal in our next section. So this is how it sounds, and it's pretty cool. What I also like about these pedals is it's something I look for in a distortion pedal, in that when you turn the guitar down from your volume pot here, it goes sweet and cleans up. So the pedal is still on, it's still working, but because I'm controlling it here from the guitar, so I can get that sweet kind of. It's not, you can hear the definition of the note. So that's why I kind of go for overdrive pedals more than distortion pedals, because I get that kind of, that in-between sound, which is I think very important. I can go from that. So the harder I hit the note, the more distortion I get. So you go. Clean. So this is our starting point. So where are we going to go next? Well, I'm going to tell you. Okay, next on our shopping list, in my opinion, should be a compressor. And you're going to say, a compressor, I don't need one of those. Well, I'm going to tell you and show you why you do need one of those. They're a fantastic pedal. They work beautifully in conjunction with our first pedal, which is the Tube Screamer. And I have, again, at my feet, a small array of my compressors. On the market, for me personally, there are two main compressors. There's an MXR Dynacomp and there's the Boss CS range. They're both great. I have exactly that here. This is a vintage MXR Dynacomp. It sounds fantastic, again, in any situation. The new one is just as good, if not a bit better, because it's got an LED light that tells you when it's on and off. But great pedal. For the Boss range, we start with this from about 1974-75. They called it the Roland Sustainer. It weighs as much as a small car. It's steam driven. It takes 18 batteries to use, but it sounds pretty cool. Eventually, they kind of got it right, and they turned it into the first Boss compressor as we know it, the CS1. This is the first version of it from around about 1979-78 with the optional wrong knobs. A bit too much compression. There was no subtlety with this pedal. You couldn't adjust it. It just sort of went at the front of every note. As I said, we don't really like that. But the one that everybody wants to go for, if you can find one from around about mid-80s onwards, was this Compressor Sustainer CS2. The Boss CS2 is a fantastic pedal. I've used this incessantly. I love this one more than anything. I'd be lost without this pedal. I have a few compressors, this or the Dynacomp. They both do exactly the same thing, really. This got refined to the CS3. They kind of put an extra tone knob on it, so you can get a bit more high end on it. But to me, that just created a little bit more hiss. But I use this a lot. This is in my one of my pedal boards. It's pretty cool. It does exactly the same thing. I'm going to explain to you what a compressor does and demonstrate right now. Well, we've got the two pedals linked together. I've got the compressor running into the tube screamer. Now let me just run through quickly what a compressor does. This is the guitar sound. It's a nice sound, but it's a clean amp. I can get extra sustain and extra dynamics from the guitar with the compressor pedal. So if I switch it on, already you can hear that sustain coming. It's become alive. I can play it without the compressor, it sounds fine. But listen to it with. So I hope you're kind of getting at home what that's actually doing to the guitar. It's kind of... With a completely... The amp I've got it's very clean, it's very low volume, but I'm getting a lot of kind of sustain with it. I mean, that note is going. You can hear what it's doing. So, just with two pedals, I'm getting a kind of almost quite a versatile setup here, because I've got a kind of a good chunky rhythm sound with the tube screamer. I've got a kind of a clean funk sound. With the compressor. So this is where we start doing a bit of magic. If I run the compressor into the tube screamer, it tricks the tube screamer into thinking it's a distortion pedal rather than an overdrive pedal. So this is what I'm going to do now. I'm going to turn the tube screamer on. So here's the tube screamer. But now if I put the compressor into the tube screamer, you're getting double bubble. I hope you're kind of following me on this. It's simple, but it works great. With two pedals, you've got a versatile little system here. So you can go out and actually gig with this. If your amp is loud enough for the drummer, if you can play over the drummer, it's no good having a tiny little amp that kind of gets lost with the drummer. You need a bit of power there to make this work. But you've got three sounds. You've got a great clean sound. You've got a nice chunky rhythm sound. And then you've got a good lead guitar sound. So it's working just with two pedals. So what would we move on to next, just to enhance this? So moving on to the pedal that I know you guys wanted to buy first of all, but I've told you to buy it third, is this jobby. Here we go. Can you guess it yet? The wah-wah, I know it's the first pedal everybody wants to buy, but I told you to buy the distortion first. It's about third on the list, I think. It's a cool pedal to have, great for, the usual stuff, the funk stuff, and great for some distortion stuff. So if I just kind of, a little bit of a funk thing. Perfect for that sort of stuff. It's a handy little thing. Great for, the thing that people that get wrong is where to put the wah-wah in the chain. Now, I'm telling you now, I've got the wah-wah first. My guitar is coming up here, straight into the wah-wah. It's coming out there into the compressor pedal, which I have on for that sort of a sustain. There's one thing I forgot to tell you guys is there's a cool way and an uncool way of using a wah-wah. Not so cool way is to pump it in time with the track, which is very, very predictable. You're just sort of it's just kind of quite boring, but you can soup it up a bit by doing different rhythmic things with it. So I'm trying to accent the chord. The other cool thing you can do is you can bring out certain frequencies with your distortion pedal. So I'll turn the tube screamer on, and I can just leave a wah-wah in a certain position, and it will kind of bring out that frequency in the sound. So. You can hear those harmonics leaping out there. The main rule when using a wah-wah, the absolute #1 rule is do not do wah-wah mouth. I'll show you what I mean. I hate to see guitar players do this. No, don't do it. You can see with 3 pedals, you've got a tiny setup, but it's great. It's really versatile. You've got your clean, your chunky, your full-on, and a wah-wah as well. So the thing about wah-wahs is some of them, they do vary, but I've got the standard Crybaby one here. They all pretty much do the same thing. They do affect your actual guitar signal ever so slightly, unless you get one with something called true bypass, which means when it's off, it's completely bypassed the signal. This is a standard one. I'm running on batteries. A bit noisy when you turn it on, but it's rock and roll, isn't it? So pretty cool. So what's be next? So we've added another pedal, and this is the next one on the list, a delay pedal. And I'm going to go into it much more detail later on, but this is a straightforward 1 delay pedal with 1 delay on it. It's gonna, when it's in that just 1 pedal format like that, you've only got the choice of whatever delay setting you set, unless you're on stage you want to bend down and tweak it, which is fine. But I've added the delay pedal because those cool kind of crunchy sounds we had earlier, if we add the delay behind it, it kind of gives a space to the sound. Let me show you. So if I'm playing my clean sound, listen to the kind of the chords, the space you get between them. It's a very subtle thing, but it's giving a size to the sound. And when you're doing a kind of a soaring lead, it adds a lovely kind of depth to it. So if I kind of sort of... turn the delay up a bit more. You can hear that, you know, you've got a kind of a cool little rig here. It's a wah-wah, so I'm going from the guitar into the wah-wah, into the compressor, into the tube screamer, into the delay. It's a digital delay, and they kind of all do the same thing, but you can buy more bigger delays, which I've got in my pedal board, which I'll show you later. But this is a straightforward old Boss DD3, and it's a kind of that delay time that I've got set. It's a kind of a delay time around about 500 milliseconds, 450 milliseconds that I know kind of works in a lot of situations. If I'm chugging away. It works behind the sound, you know, and if I'm kind of doing maybe a little funk thing, you can hear it's kind of it's one of those things. You have to set the delay time, usually, if you can, set the delay time to the track. But if you've got a basic system like this with just 4 pedals, you either bend down and change the delay time, or get a delay time that's kind of around about that between 400, 500, 550 millisecond time, which is around about there, and you won't go too far wrong. But we're going to go more into digital delays in our next section, where we're going to, at this stage, we need to put them on a pedal board. So that's the next thing, our first pedal board. I'd like to show you around this first pedal board we've got here. On the track you heard I was using a tick delay, and so I'll go into the delay in depth in a second. But let me just show you what we're doing here. We've got the wah-wah first, as per usual, which is, you know how that sounds. Then we're going into a compressor, and I've got that on at the moment just to enhance the sound. Then here we got this something you haven't heard before, the Phase 100 MXR pedal. I've got it set as a kind of a Hendrixy uni-vibe kind of sound. It's not a uni, we don't have a uni, I don't have a uni-vibe, so, but I can kind of get it out of it, the MXR Phase pedal. It also does a flange kind of sound, which is around here somewhere. Various wobbles and warbles. But to me, it sounds very much like the old Hendrix Uni-Vibe pedal, which is I really like. So that's that. Then we're going into the distortion pedal, as you know, which is the overdrive. So all those pedals are in the front of the amp. You usually put digital delays and reverbs in effects loops of amps. So if your amp hasn't got an effects loop, then you have to run it clean and put the delay into the front of it, because you can't. If an amp is distorting, if it's breaking up and you put delays into the front of it, it means you're going to distort your delays, and you want the delays to stay clean. You want delayed distortion, not distorted delay, if that makes sense. And as I said, in the effects loop, we have the chorus pedal and the delay pedal. The chorus pedal I've got set as a kind of a You have to watch you're using chorus pedals, because there's a fine line with chorus, in that you can sometimes sound like the pub rock guitar player. So I kind of have it set slightly more extreme than usual. It's also nice for big soaring kind of Lukather delays. It can sound a bit 80s though, so you have to watch the chorus. Now we've got a mega delay here. This is a Boss Giga delay. It's a pretty cool pedal because it has you can store 4 settings in it, which is one of the settings I was using on the tune you heard earlier. There's a tick delay. The riff I was playing was, without the delay, would be sound like this. If I put the tick in, be with you, there we go. If I put the tick in, very kind of U2-y, kind of, it's a great rhythmic element. I've got that in there. The next one I've got set as a real kind of close sort of room kind of sound. Without it, it sounds like this. Very dry. With it, just a tiny room. That's set at 65 milliseconds. By the way, if you want the tick effect, I forgot to tell you the time, you have to set your delay around about 320 milliseconds. Around about that, give or take 10 milliseconds will give you, depending on the timing of the song, it will give you the tick effect. So we've got the tick effect. I've got a close delay. And then we've got a sort of a soaring long delay. Can you hear that? It's like what we were doing earlier when I had the 4 pedals and I had just a generic kind of ambient size delay going on. It's handy for a lot of things. It'll give you a big sort of sound to the core. You can hear that. This one. This is around about 470 milliseconds, but it's a very kind of a U2 kind of sound. I'll come up with something. Kind of off the top of my head, but it's very kind of that U2 kind of sound. You can also double it up if you were going. It's not rocket science, but it depends a lot on your being able to keep time with this hand. I just kind of like the sound of that. Who cares what chord you're playing? Who cares what key the song's in? Just do that. Pretty cool. What I haven't talked about is this volume pedal, which I've got set here. Now, you can agree with me or disagree with me on this, but I like some way of boosting my sound so that when I'm doing a guitar solo, I can raise above the drummer or the rest of the band. Because there's nothing worse than seeing a guitar player do his thing on stage, pulling all the faces and the expressions, but it just sounds like a tiny little sound in the corner. When I play, the whole place hears me. So I come back when I'm playing my rhythm, and it's kind of like a boost system where I can just gauge my own rhythm to raise it above the band. This is set in the effects loop. I think a volume pedal or some form of boost is essential, but it goes from. So I've got all that. It's also cool in that I can have a full-on rock sound. I can have all the distortion and everything on, but I can still I can still control the volume of it. So so that's a full-on sound. But I could also have it. So it gives you a lot of control of the tone and the sound, especially in combination with the volume pot of your guitar, because you could have your full-on distortion sound, but back the guitar off, and you get a kind of very soulful sort of. But full on. Over the years, you develop these little tricks. There's a lot of tones to be had with this and controlling the pickups. But a combination of this and the volume pedal gives you all the range of tones from clean. I've got the amp set kind of dirty-ish, slightly dirty, but clean to full-on grunge and dirt. So I think a volume pedal or some form of boost, like a graphic EQ, which I have in another pedal board, which I'll show you in a second. But we're going to do one more tune, and I'm probably going to do a bit of wah-wah and a bit of the old Hendrix Univibe sound going on here. So guys, I've got another pedal board which I use occasionally. There's a lot of bending over involved in this. This is hurting my back, but here we go. I'm going to explain the route that my signal is taking and some new pedals which we've got here. As per usual, we've got a power supply powering all the pedals. You need a power supply. I'm running this wah-wah not on the pedal board because sometimes I don't use it and I don't have it in the chain. It's an optional thing which kind of just sits at the side, but I'm still running power to it. Anyway, this is the signal. I come out of my guitar, I go into the wah-wah. As per usual, that's the first thing that you go into. Out of the wah-wah, into our compressor. It's the same system we've been using kind of all along. Out of the compressor into a distortion pedal, which I've got as a tube screamer next. After the tube screamer, I'm going into another distortion pedal. As an option, I've got a rat pedal, an early rat pedal. I come out of the rat pedal into this stereo Boss chorus. Out of the Boss chorus, back into the front of the amp. All those pedals are what I'm putting in front of the amp. I've also got an option. This is a stereo Boss chorus. I usually run from the other side of the Boss chorus. I run into this tuner sitting on top of the power bank here, but it's not connected at the moment because hopefully I'm in tune. So from the effects send, the effects part of the amp, the send and return on part of the amp, I'm coming effects send into the front of this graphic equalizer pedal, which you haven't seen before. I'll tell you why I use that, and it's a pretty cool pedal to have. Coming out of the graphic equalizer into this big mother of a volume pedal. It's an Ernie Ball volume pedal. I bought this in the mid-80s, and it's lasted ever since. It runs on a little string in there. I've had to replace the string, but it's a great pedal. Coming out of this volume pedal, going round to the delay section, as per usual, into the delays. I've got a digital delay, a very old digital delay. It's usually set, I have it set on one kind of repeat setting, which is that generic spacious setting where we had first of all. Coming out of there into an old Boss analog. It's called a DM2. It's kind of meant to imitate sort of the old tape echo. It's an old analog sounding delay, and I have that on a very close setting, which I'll play to you in a second. And it comes out of this analog delay and goes back into the effects return of the amp. So if I can do that quickly, guitar goes into the wah-wah, out of the wah-wah, into the compressor, out of the compressor, into the tube screamer, out of the tube screamer, into the rat pedal, out of the rat pedal, into the chorus pedal, out of the chorus pedal, back into the front of the amp. The effects send goes into the graphic, out of the graphic, into the volume pedal, out of the volume pedal, into the digital delay, out of the digital delay, into the analog delay, out of the analog delay, back to the effects return of the amp. Space is an issue. I've got this tuner sitting on top of the power supply. Not really a good idea, but I've got no space, and that's how big I want it. It fits in my flight case, and that's how big I wanted it. It's a bit like real estate. Space is an issue. So I'm going to run through some sounds here. I've got the amp set just on the edge of distortion. Kind of. I can clean it. I can clean the amp up by turning the guitar down. So there's the wah-wah. It's the old type where you have to give it a... Then we got this compressor, which is... Tube screamer. I've got the option of putting the compressor into the tube screamer to get more gain, so I get... And then... Then the rat pedal, the old-fashioned rat pedal. It's a pretty cool pedal. Works with some amps, doesn't work with other amps, but it's nice to have. Now, I was talking to you about the kind of a boost system. I've got, not only am I using my volume pedal so I can control my overall volume, and all the in-between sounds, I can have these full up, the distortion full up on these pedals, but still control it from here. Which is cool. But also I've got this graphic, which is, it's a great boost system. Listen to the difference if I can go. This is without it. This is with it. I've kind of got it, the overall boost section is the overall volume here. I've got it set just above my normal volume, so that when I kick it in, it really kicks in. And I've notched it, so I'm boosting the low mid, because with some cabs, they're lacking a bit of low. Usually with 2x12 cabinets, you lack a bit of low mid, so you can boost the low mid with this graphic pedal, and it's a cool pedal to work in conjunction with the distortion pedals. It gives you a lot of options for. You don't just have one distortion, you've got a lot of options, especially with your pickup selection and the controlling the volume knob. So if I turn the rat pedal on, then the graphic, you've got a pretty cool range of sounds just from this small, usual setup that we've been using all along. The delays, well, if you listen to this new pedal here, this old analog pedal, which I told you about, I've got it set in a kind of a rockabilly. It's kind of that. Can you hear it? It's just giving it a slight. Just giving it a slight volume, a slight delay, which is nice. And sometimes I just add the generic big delay on top of that. Hear the big delay? So I can sort of swell it. This chorus pedal, I remember what I said about sounding a bit pub rock with your chorus pedals. I've got this set at quite a funky setting because it's a stereo chorus pedal. I have it set on the stereo mode, but not running it in stereo. So in mono, you get a kind of a wobble effect, which is kind of nice for eerie, textural stuff. This is the sound I've got going. Let's turn this up. Without the delay. Can you hear it wobbling? Without it, with it. It's pretty subtle, but I hope you can hear it. And it works really great with the big delay sound we have. Bit of violent pedal bashing at the end there. You can hear that it's quite a simple setup. I've kept my sound to the key pedals that I know are going to get me through a lot of gigs. A wah-wah, a few options on some distortion pedals, the graphic, the volume pedal, and a couple of simple delays. I've done a lot of gigs and a lot of sessions and situations with this, and it'll get you through a lot of situations. We're going to move on to some multi-effects. Moving right along, guys, I'd like to speak a little bit about multi-effects units. There's the new type and the old type. I use both. And let me explain about the new type and the old type. The very first ones that came out specifically made by Boss pedals. They look kind of like this. This is a Boss ME8. I've got an ME6 in one of my pedal boards. I'm just showing you the ME8 because I had it lying about. But the good thing about these old ones, if you pick them up, A, they're not much money if you can find them. And B, they're very transparent to your guitar signal. You can put your guitar in and it'll come out the other end and it'll still sound like your guitar. It's basically a set of Boss pedals in a box. It really is kind of as simple as that. What I do avoid on these, and in most situations on the multi-effects units, is the distortion and sometimes the compressor pedal. But mainly the distortion in these is pants, so don't worry about those. You've got to get that somewhere else either from your amp, or I usually put these in the effects loop of an amp, so I get the amp distortion, but going through the effects part of this, I use it for reverbs, delays, chorus, maybe a bit of compression. This is a later one, it's got more funky things, but in my other pedal board, which we'll get to later, the big pedal board, I've got an old first version of this called the ME6. But down here, I've got a more up-to-date version. It just happens to be a Boss GT3 because I got one of those when they came out. The processing power on it was fantastic. If you can think of a sound, you can program it. They're all basically the same. All the companies, they want you to get the same kind of vibe out of it, the same sounds. But it's up to you to get the sound out of these things. They have the processing power, but you've got to have the brain power to get the sound that you're after. When you usually buy these things, they have factory settings which are way overboard, and they want to show you, what it can do. And usually it's too much of everything, too much reverb, too much delay, too much of everything. So build your own patch in a way that we've kind of thought about, the way I've talked about the basic sounds of a good distortion sound, a good compressive sound, the delay, and then go from there. But I'm going to show you some of the sounds I've used which are a bit out there. Basically, this will do all the usual sounds, the distortion, the wah-wah, the chorus, all the usual sounds that you associate with. I'm going to show you some of the more funky stuff that it's just out there. And I use it in tracks and backing tracks. I use it as textures when I'm recording in studios. It's handy, it's quick, it's instant. Usually when you're in a recording studio, time is money. So if you can say, check this out, gling, spling, fadoom, usually the guys are satisfied, the engineer's happy, everybody's happy without wheeling in huge cabinets, amps, and racks and racks of gear. You can get this. I know it's probably the wrong mentality that you're not going to wheel racks and racks of gear in, but sometimes you've only got a hatchback and there's only so much gear you can car about yourself. If you haven't got people setting up your own gear, then you've got to carry it around yourself. So let's go through some sounds and see what you think. Okay, the best way to run these modern multi-effects units is into a stereo power amp. That's kind of what they're designed to do, but you can compromise by using two clean amps or even one clean amp, as long as it's kind of clean and powerful, and all of the tone and the signal is coming from the multi-effects thing, and your amp isn't distorting or creating too much tone on top of that. I'm running it into a stereo power amp. So I'm going to run through some sounds for you. That's a basic clean sound. It's got a kind of a plate reverb on it. It's handy just for general vibing and general groove sort of. But clean and dirty sounds, you've got so many options. Think of any clean sound, any dirty sound, and basically you'll get a close approximation of what you want. So I'm going to just move on to the more weird stuff, because that I use for textures. Here's a weird sound. It slices the sound up, and I'm controlling the speed of it with the expression pedal that's on the unit. But it's pretty weird, and it's great in a track when you can slow it up and speed it down or pulse it in time with the track. So what else we've got next? We have, I think, a pretty cool dirty sound that I can control the amount of distortion I want coming in and out. Next, I kind of I like that univibe sound, and I've kind of created a univibe pedal type sound. Let me just find it. It's Bank 3 number 4. This is a phaser. This is it's under the phaser heading of the multi-effects unit, but I can control the pulse of the phase, and it sounds very much like a univibe. Pretty convincing. I've got a thing in here which is the whammy pedal. It's copying the whammy pedal. In other words, it's you can truly whammy pedals. They're good for just weird whammy pedal things. And it's just if you can find a use for it, great. But it's one of those pedals that you can't overuse, like I did just then. Next we have. I'm really into reverbs and delays. Reverb is a big kind of textural thing. You have to have an instinct and an understanding of reverb to use it tastefully. But hopefully this will show you what I mean. Let's find it. I like that sound a lot. I use that a lot for backing tracks. And, get rid of the keyboard player and do it yourself. That's what I say. This is a kind of a dirty sound again that I can control the amount of gain I have on it. Obligatory, using the reverbs again, obligatory kind of jazz sound, which is quite nice. It's just unobtrusive, but just tasteful. This is a sound I use quite a lot. It's a tremolo. It's a tremolo sound, and I'm using the expression pedal in the unit to control the rate of the actual tremolo. If you imagine the signal going, you'll see what I mean. Here we go. Again, this is a kind of a reverb type sound using some delays and a wobbly but not overly done chorus. This is the sound I use a hell of a lot for backing tracks. You might pick up some of these sounds on the backing tracks that I've put down on this DVD, but I call this sound a schlang. It's a guitar players will know what I mean. It kind of just goes schlang, really. What that sound is I'm using chorus, and then I'm putting, with the pitch shifter, there's a pitch shifter in here, I'm putting an octave above the actual note. So you're getting pitch shift, chorus, bit of delay, and touch of reverb in there. That's a lot of compression, gives that kind of fat sort of schlangy sound. Again, moving on to a reverb. Let me find it again. This is kind of a reverb and a repeating slow delay. It gives this kind of sound. This is a sound I use a lot. It's one of my favorite sounds. It's, again, with a pitch shift, a lot of chorus, some tap delay. I've called it 12 string. It's nothing like a 12 string, but you have to put a sound, a name with the sound so you can remember it in your settings. But it's kind of something like this. It's a cool sound. It's great for textural stuff, and again, getting rid of the keyboard player, which is what we want. This is a playing with delays. I've used this a lot in terms of it's good to. What it's doing, the delay is holding what I play. It's going to hold it and keep it going until I decide to, with the expression pedal, pull it away. You'll see what I mean. But it's great to have it, to fade it in a track and sweep it across. It's just it's a kind of a weird delay thing. Let's see what happens. this. I just want to do something else on this. This is cool for just some weird sounds and stuff going on. Any scrape or scrack you make on the guitar, it'll keep hold of. Listen, I'm just going to experiment and see what happens. You get the vibe. You get the vibe. The next sound. This is all the newer multi-effects have a harmonizer. They're an intelligent harmonizer. You program in what harmony you want, what key you're in, and it will give you the appropriate harmony of that key. I've got this just set, just for safety reasons, to an octave sound. Let me find it. Where is it? Did you spot the mistake? That was set to a fifth. Now I'm going to do it with an octave. Actually, I'm not sure what's going on there. I think it's a fifth with an octave. I can't remember how I've got it set, but you get the idea. It'll harmonise any key you want. So, I mean, there's plenty of processing power in these units. They're all basically the same. The newer ones, they're getting better and better each time. This is quite old now. It's worth nothing, but you can pick these units up for less than 150 quid. And it's a good stuff, a good tool to have for the studio. You've got plenty of options to DI in studio with pods and line 6 stuff. But if you can get into this, it'll DI as well. It's got speaker emulations. I've got into it. I've had it a while, and I just through doing a lot of recording. I know what sounds work. I dig it out for a lot of the weird and wacky stuff you just heard. We're going to move on to my gigging pedal board now, which is got an old multi-unit effect in, and I'll see you then. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you enjoyed the weird sounds that I've got going on there. Just to show that you can use these in the real world, I'm going to play a song with this unit. So we've built up to my main pedal board. This is the pedal board that goes with me to most gigs, most situations, most live situations. It's very ugly, but it kind of works. It's held together with old lady's hair and Blue Peter sticky back plastic. But it seems to have lasted the course of a few tours and various situations in some nasty clubs. But I'm going to try and explain the usual signal route, which is always good for a laugh, because we have to take about 3 or 4 takes to do it. But it looks a lot. Actually, I know it looks imposing, but it's actually the same basic principle as those first 4 pedals we had at the very beginning of the DVD. So let me just point to a couple of points of interest. The first thing being is the expression pedal. The expression pedal works in conjunction with this very, very old multi-effects unit. It's the first multi-effects unit when Boss started putting pedals in one unit. It's the ME6. You can pick them up at car boot sales. They're so cheap. But what I used the ME6 for, they're perfect for controlling the volume in the effects loop of the amp with an expression pedal. They're perfect for a delay, for standard chorus or even stereo chorus. They're great for a nice roomy reverb, and that's basically all I use this for. It's got a distortion in it, which is hideous, and a compressor in it, which is shocking. So all I'm using it for is chorus, flanger, delay, reverb, and that's about it. And also to control the volume with the expression pedal of the amp. Remember before I had volume pedals. This time I'm using the expression pedal to control the overall volume. Let me just show you what I mean. See, that's the expression pedal doing that. It keeps it's like taming the beast. You can have your amp cranked, but again you've got full control of it with this expression pedal, and that's because I'm using this cheapy multi-effects, which is very transparent, like the early ones were. Not like the multi-effects unit I was using previously, the GT3, Boss GT3. That's not transparent. These early ones are transparent. That's why I quite like them. So if you can find them, it's worth checking it out. It's not enough by itself. You need a good amp, a good guitar, and I've kind of got these ancillary pedals. So let me take my signal chain like we do every time. There we go. So guitar lead into this wah-wah. I don't know if you can see it, the wah-wah down there. The wah-wah I'm running it on a battery. There's no mains power to this. Sometimes I have it in, sometimes I don't. It's running on battery, but the battery is good. It's an old type wah-wah. I come out of the wah-wah and I come a lead along here, and I'm going in to the compressor like we usually do. Out of the compressor into the super overdrive like we usually do. So again, I've got these options of having the amp on the edge. I can kick more into it with the compressor, and I can kick more into it with the overdrive, and I can put both of these on, and all hell breaks loose. It comes out of there and goes back into the front of the amp. So that is quite simple, straightforward. Wah-wah, compressor, distortion pedal. Fair enough, into the front of your amp. Now in the effects loop of the amp, I'm coming effects send, and this is where it goes into the multi-effects unit. It comes out of there. I've got various options out. I can come stereo out, but at the moment I'm coming mono out. I can run stereo through these pedals, but I'm coming in mono out. We're running in mono at the moment. Into this tremolo pedal, which is quite nice. Out of the tremolo pedal into this old pitch shifter delay, and sometimes I have this set on a close slapback delay, and sometimes I have it set on a pitch shifter giving me a very high octave up, just for some of those shingle effects. It's nice sometimes with chorus. I come out of the pitch shifter delay into a digital delay, a Boss digital delay, which is the DD5. I'm out of there and back into the effects return of the amp. Now, I don't know if you can see down here, there's this FS pedal, this Boss foot tappy thing that I tap the delay times into the digital delay. So, the song can start, and if I want to set my delay times, I just tap on there, and there's a lead running into the delay pedal, which will set the delays in time. It's quite a cool little thing that the DD5 does. So let me just give you some sounds. It's not as comprehensive as all those way out things you heard before. It's just more like a sound enhancing. The whole lot is a sound enhancing tool, like all effects should be with your playing. They're not to replace your playing, they're to enhance your sound. So it looks a lot, but it's all basically just sprinkling fairy dust on an already nice guitar and amp sound. That is the main thing with any sound you get. You've got to have a nice sounding guitar that works well with a good sounding amp. You know, it doesn't have to be an expensive guitar, it doesn't have to be an expensive amp, but if they work well together and they sound nice, that's a good basis for to adding your effects. So I'm just going to run through some sounds, and then we might play some tunes. So I've got my amp set kind of. It's not exactly super clean, but it's more like if I dig in, it'll distort. But if I roll it off a bit and just play softly, it's kind of clean. So it's on the edge. It's quite a nice full sound. So I can kick more into it with the compressor. Let me pick up a plectrum. It's all going through the multi-unit, and all I'm getting in the multi-unit is doing is I'm controlling the volume, and I've got a very close room bluesy type reverb on it. It's sort of, I don't know if you can hear the reverb. It's very subtle, but it's. These multi-effects, if you think of them as separate Boss pedals, you can use it that way, but I've actually got banks of presets. So on some presets, I'll just have the reverb. On other presets, I'll have the delay and the reverb. I could just treat them. I could just press a button and have it as a manual on-off effect, but I'm just showing you some of the presets that I've got in here. So I've got the compressor on for a nice kind of, it's a kind of crunchy sound, with a lot of control from the guitar. You see that's what I look for, and it's a transparent kind of. All this is quite transparent. A lot of it is coming from the guitar. So I can kick even more into the amp by using the compressor and the distortion pedal. So you can sort of. So this is just the compressor. Then I'll kick in the distortion pedal. So you can see it's a huge sound just by adding a little touch of sprinkled dust of reverb coming from this multi-effects thing. So I've got the tremolo pedal, which I can just kick in. It's in line for after it's in the effects loop, but it's in line after the multi-effects pedal. Like I showed you the path, but that's just set kind of you can have it set how you want. Great for sort of this sort of kind of You can see I switched on the tremolo pedal and I switched on the digital delay. You become, if I've used this for so long that I've got instinctive with it. It's kind of almost like playing another instrument. It's there. I could do without it, but with it, I'm working the amp, I'm working the guitar, and I'm working the different enhancements that I can give here. If I just change patch on this multi-effects thing, there's there's so many options, but on this one I've got a kind of a weird chorus, which I kind of like those weird choruses. So it's sort of, it's very snappy and warbly. It's not your predictable chorus. Here I have your predictable chorus with a predictable delay. Here I have the same sort of sound, but without the chorus, so there's the delay again. And that delay is coming from the multi-effects unit. So if I really want to go delay crazy, I've got almost 2 delays I can add on, which I do quite often. I'll kind of, if I add this one as well, let me turn this delay up a bit so you get a kind of a layering effect of delays. It becomes huge behind your guitar sound. It's what I'd like to show you guys is what I sometimes do at gigs is I turn this multi-effects unit into 6 separate pedals. So there's a little button on here that says manual mode, just here. And all it does is simply turn these pedals into, imagine 6 pedals. And I'll show you, I'll switch each one on and off to tell you, so you can see what the sound is doing. It's a completely dry sound now. That's just the amp. This end. This is a compressor. I don't use this because it's horrible. So if I switch it on and off. This is a distortion, which I never ever use. It's really nasty, and I don't even want to turn it on because I hate to think what's going to happen. But here we go. Ugh! Don't do it. It gets interesting here. I use this on most of the presets because sometimes I can't take a 4x12 to a gig. I'll use a 2x12, but I still want that 4x12 sound. So what I've got here is a graphic equalizer. It's very simple. It's basically high, mid, and low. And I kind of, it warms it up quite nicely, especially if I'm using a 2x12 cab. That's with. This is without. So it really beefs up. You can tweak it depending on. I usually tweak it depending on what amp I'm going to use for that particular gig. But I've got this set in various forms on all the presets. You know, so the graphic is usually in. It's like the same principle as I had on that previous pedal board, where I had the graphic and I kind of boosted the sound, or if I wanted it, or I used it as a boost, or just boosting the various frequencies that I want boosted on, or cut even. Going along, here's the delay. Simple delay. You know, it's in this it's a mono delay, I think, in this, but I can stereo it eventually with the DD5. This is a chorus. It can also be a phaser. It can also be a flanger, but you can't have both at the same time. And I use this a lot in various forms. This is just a very simple reverb. Hear that? It's a. I mean, what's quite nice, the reverb. It's just if say I was going to store a preset, I got the reverb, and I think it needs a bit of the graphic. So. It's a cool sound. But that's the principle of this. It looks complicated, but it's really not. If you think of it, it's just 6 separate pedals, and then you can combine them. So I'm going to go out of the manual mode now and go back into my kind of stored presets. Here's a chorus one. One I haven't showed you is combining the chorus with the pitch shifter. And I think I've got this set to a, if I turn the pitch shifter on, it sounds pretty weird by itself. You can't go, it's like, hey, but if I combine it with, say, a nice chorus, you get this kind of, and the delay. Let's get the delay on the go. You can do that, all that stuff I was doing earlier. So you can see it's a kind of a versatile kind of setup. What other sounds I can show you? Is the chorus in this set to a kind of a, let's go to the delay. It's a kind of a flange I've got going. Kind of a various uses. It's a flanger basically. A cool little feature that these old Boss multi-effects units have is that they have a direct out just here, which is meant for you to put into your tuner, which is what I'm doing here. I've got a tuner sat on a piece of garbage here, velcroed to it, and it's a direct. The guitar signal goes in here, but it's the guitar signal coming straight out, straight into this tuner. But what I sometimes do, I come out of there into another amp. I could run a multi-amp system. I could come out of stereo into 2 amps through this lot, but I could run a direct signal, if you're into that, straight out of there, straight into an amp. So it would just be an untouched guitar tone, which is a cool little feature. I mean, I could do it. I could go out of here into the tuner and come out of the tuner straight into this amp, but it would be unaffected. So it's a cool little feature. And that's basically what it's doing. That's the whole setup. I've got the wah-wah at the front, so it's become an extension of my amp and my guitar rather than effects for effects' sake. There's effects that you can buy and you'll use once, and it's just like, oh, that sounded cool for 1 second, and then suddenly you can only use it for 1 or 2 times. So this is the core of what I use, and in various forms or another, you'll see other guitar players using basically this principle. Not necessarily with the multi-effects, but with stripped down pedals. So I'm going to play a tune using this pedal board. Okay, we're going to do another track with this multi-effects unit, and I'm going to try and play some moody effect guitar over it with some moody noodling guitar as well. So I hope you like it. That just about wraps this up, guys. Thanks for watching. I hope I helped you towards Sonic Nirvana. A quick thank you to Dave Kidd for engineering my tracks in the studio, and to Phil Williams and Richard Barrett for co-writing one of the backing tracks. Good luck and enjoy those effects.